The stagecoach lurched to a halt in a cloud of Wyoming dust, and Nora Hale gripped her carpetbag tighter as she peered through the grimy window. Dry willow sprawled before her like a collection of weathered bones bleaching under the October sun. False-fronted buildings lined the main street, their unpainted boards warped by wind and time. This was to be her new beginning, a far cry from the cobblestone streets and gaslit parlors of Boston. "End of the line, miss!" The driver called down, his voice rough as the gravel road they'd traveled. Nora gathered her traveling dress and stepped down, her eastern boots immediately coating with dust. The wind hit her like a slap, cold and carrying the scent of sage and distant snow. She touched the cameo at her throat, her mother's, and straightened her shoulders. Behind her lay scandal and whispered accusations. Ahead lay what? A position at the postal office and the chance to prove she could stand on her own feet. A commotion near the coach drew her attention. Men in worn cavalry uniforms were checking passengers' papers, though something about their bearing seemed off. Their insignia didn't match, and their boots were too fine for soldiers' pay. "Papers, ma'am," one demanded, blocking her path. He had the dead eyes of a man who enjoyed his petty authority. "I beg your pardon." Nora kept her voice steady, though her pulse quickened. "Postal inspection. Need to see your documents and check your bags." "Since when does the Postal Service employ armed inspectors?" she asked. But already the man was reaching for her carpetbag. That's when she saw him, a tall man leaning against the general store's porch post, watching the scene with sharp blue eyes, sun-weathered and lean. He wore his Colt .45 like it belonged there, but it was the quiet confidence in his stance that drew her notice. When their eyes met, something passed between them, a recognition of trouble brewing. The inspector yanked her bag open, pawing through her few possessions. Suddenly, he pulled out a packet wrapped in oilcloth that Nora had never seen before. "Well, well, what have we here?" His smile was ugly. "Stolen mail. Looks like." "That's not mine," Nora said firmly. "Someone must have—" "Save it for the judge. Miss, you're under arrest for mail theft." The man by the store straightened, pushing off the post with deliberate slowness. "That's interesting. Harkins," he said, his voice carrying despite the wind. "Seeing as how the lady just stepped off the coach and you planted that packet yourself not 30 seconds ago. The inspector Harkins spun around. "This ain't your business, Callan." "Everything in this town's my business when it involves innocent folk getting railroaded." Jack Callan stepped into the street, his spurs ringing against the hard-packed earth. "Besides, Ezra asked me to collect Miss Hale here. Makes it my business twice over." Nora studied her unexpected defender. Mid-30s, she guessed, with premature silver threading through dark hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many hours squinting into the sun, or perhaps too many memories he'd rather forget. "The postmaster sent you?" she asked. "Ma'am." He touched his hat brim. "Jack Callan. I run a small spread north of town. Ezra's laid up with a bad back. Asked if I'd see you settled." Harkins stepped between them. "She's coming with us." "No," Jack said simply. "She's not." The air went tight. Harkins's hand drifted toward his sidearm, but Jack's never moved. He just stood there, relaxed as a cat in sunshine. And somehow that was more menacing than any threat. "You want to explain to Mr. Whitcomb why you're harassing the new postal clerk?" Jack asked mildly. "Seems like that might interfere with his interests." The name Whitcomb caused a ripple through the gathered crowd. Harkins's jaw worked, but he stepped back. "This ain't over." "Never thought it was." Jack picked up Nora's carpetbag and offered his arm. "Miss Hale." She took it, allowing him to guide her away from the coach and the glowering men. Her legs felt unsteady, though she'd never admit it aloud. "Thank you," she said once they were out of earshot. "Though I'm curious why Mr. Whitcomb's name carries such weight." "Baron Whitcomb owns half the valley's cattle and has designs on the other half. Those weren't real inspectors, just his boys playing dress-up. Jack glanced at her. Question is, why were they so interested in you? I haven't the faintest idea. I'm nobody special, just a woman seeking employment far from home. He studied her with those penetrating eyes. In my experience, miss, nobody comes this far west without a good reason, but your secrets are your own. They reached a modest building marked U.S. Post Office in peeling paint. Jack set her bag down on the wooden sidewalk. Ezra lives in the back. He'll get you sorted with lodgings and such. He paused. Word of advice, whatever was in that packet they tried to plant on you. Someone wanted you tangled up in something ugly. Keep your eyes open. I shall. And Mr. Callan, thank you again. He touched his hat once more and turned to go, then stopped. If you need anything, if there's more trouble, my place is 8 miles north. Follow the creek. White fence. Can't miss it. Nora watched him walk away. His stride easy but alert, like a man accustomed to watching his back. The wind gusted again, sharp with the promise of winter, and she shivered. What had she gotten herself into? Inside the post office, Ezra Hoffman proved to be a spry 70-year-old with clouded eyes and gnarled hands. He greeted her warmly, showing her around the small operation. Glad you made it, Miss Hale. Your letter of recommendation spoke highly of your skills. He peered at her over wire spectacles. Though I hear you had some excitement at the coach. Mr. Callan intervened before it became serious. Good man. Jack keeps to himself mostly, but he's solid as bedrock when trouble comes calling. Ezra's expression grew troubled. And we've got plenty of trouble brewing. Whitcomb's been pressuring folks to sell their water rights. Those who won't, he shook his head. That evening, Nora lay in her narrow bed at Mrs. Paulson's boarding house, staring at the rough ceiling beams. Through the thin walls, she could hear the sounds of the saloon down the street, piano music, laughter, the occasional crash of breaking glass, so different from Boston's refined evenings. Her thoughts drifted to the packet that had been planted in her bag. Someone had marked her as a target before she'd even arrived. But why? She was nobody, just a merchant's daughter who'd refused to marry the man her father had chosen after his business partner had caught them in a compromising position that was entirely innocent but looked damning. The wind rattled her window, and she pulled the thin blanket higher. Tomorrow she'd begin her new life properly, sorting mail and proving she could make her own way. Whatever schemes were afoot in Dry Willow, she'd keep her head down and stay out of them. But even as she made that resolution, she knew it was futile. The planted packet, Jack Callan's warning, Ezra's troubled words, she was already caught in something larger than herself. In the morning, she dressed in her plainest gray dress and reported to the post office. Ezra showed her the mail sorting system, the registry for valuable packages, and the telegraph equipment she'd need to master. Most folks can't read nor write too well, he explained. So you'll be doing a fair bit of letter writing and reading for them. Discretion's important, people's private business stays private. The morning passed quietly. Nora sorted the mail that had come on yesterday's coach, marveling at addresses like Jim Baker, 3rd dugout past the big cottonwood, and the Swede, north of town where the creek bends. She was just organizing the registered parcels when the bell above the door chimed. A thin man in a dusty coat entered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Need to send something, he muttered, sliding an envelope across the counter. Registered to Cheyenne. Nora began filling out the form. Your name? Sir. Smith. John Smith. She didn't let her skepticism show. And the contents. Legal documents, nothing valuable. His hands shook slightly as he counted out the fee. After he left, Nora held the envelope up to the light. The paper was thick, impossible to see through, but something about the man's manner troubled her. She logged it carefully and placed it in the registered mail pouch. That afternoon, as she was teaching herself the telegraph by practicing with old messages, Jack Callan walked in. He'd cleaned up since yesterday. though dust still clung to his boots. "Miss Hale, settling in." "Quite well, thank you. How may I help you?" He glanced around, confirming they were alone. "That packet they tried to plant on U1 turned up at the Henderson place this morning, hidden in their grain barrel." "What was in it?" "Stolen bank certificates from Laramie? Would have been enough to send Tom Henderson to prison." His expression was grim. "He wouldn't sell his water rights to Whitcomb last month." A chill ran down Nora's spine. "So, Whitcomb eliminates opposition by framing them for crimes." "Appears so. The Hendersons are packing up, heading back east to family." Jack leaned against the counter. "Thought you should know what you stepped into." Before she could respond, the door burst open. The nervous man from earlier stumbled in, his coat torn and blood running from a gash on his forehead. "Help!" he gasped. "They're after me. The packet." He collapsed against the counter. Jack caught him before he hit the floor, lowering him gently. "Who's after you?" "Whitcomb's men. The ledger in the envelope. Shows everything." His eyes found Nora. "Don't let them have it. People need to know." He went limp. Jack checked his pulse, shook his head. Through the window, Nora saw riders approaching fast. "Back room," Jack ordered. "Now!" They dragged the man's body behind the counter just as boots thundered on the boardwalk. Harkins and 2 other men burst in, guns drawn. "Where is he?" Harkins demanded. "Where's who?" Nora kept her voice steady, though her heart hammered. "Don't play games. Woman, Smith came in here." "Several men came in today." "You'll have to be more specific." Harkins's face darkened. He started around the counter, but Jack stepped in his path. "Post office is federal property." Jack said quietly, "You pull that gun in here. You'll answer to the U.S. Marshal." "Get out of my way, Callan." "No." They stood frozen, violence hanging in the air like smoke. Finally, Harkins backed down. "This isn't over," he snarled. "That packet belongs to Mr. Whitcomb." "Then Mr. Whitcomb can file a proper claim through legal channels," Nora said, surprising herself with her calm. "This is a federal post office, not a general store." After they left, Jack turned to her. "You've got spine, Miss Hale, but spine alone won't keep you safe. That envelope, where is it?" She retrieved it from the registered pouch. They stared at it, both understanding its significance. "If what he said is true, this could bring down Whitcomb's whole operation," Jack said. "Or get us killed trying." Nora met his eyes. "What do you suggest?" He was quiet for a long moment. "My place is defendable. You could stay there while we figure this out." "That would be highly improper." "So's being dead." He gestured to the body behind the counter. "Your choice, miss, but decide quick. They'll be back." Nora looked at the dead man, at the blood pooling on her clean floor, at the envelope that apparently contained enough truth to kill for. She'd come west for a new life, for freedom and dignity. Perhaps this was the price. "I'll need to pack a few things," she said. Jack nodded, approval flickering in his eyes. "I'll ready the horses. We leave in 10 minutes. As Nora hurried to gather her possessions, the Wyoming wind howled outside, carrying the scent of coming snow and the promise of trials ahead. She'd wanted to escape the suffocating propriety of Boston, the whispers and restrictions. "Be careful what you wish for," her mother used to say. Indeed. The ride to Jack's ranch took them through country that grew wilder with each mile. Nora clutched the saddle horn, unused to riding astride, the borrowed trousers from Ezra's back room feeling strange against her legs. The envelope was secured in her saddlebag, wrapped in oilcloth against the threatening sky. "You're doing fine," Jack said, noting her white knuckles. "That mare's gentle as a lamb." "Lambs don't usually stand 5 feet tall with iron shoes," Nora muttered, earning a rare smile from him. They followed a creek that whispered between cottonwoods, their leaves already turned gold and rattling in the wind. Jack rode easy, watchful, his Winchester across his saddle. Every so often he'd pull up, listening to sounds Nora couldn't identify. There, he pointed to a cluster of buildings nestled against a low ridge. Home. It wasn't much a cabin of chinked logs, a barn that had seen better days, a corral with sturdy fencing, but smoke curled from the chimney and chickens pecked in the yard. Signs of life in this vast emptiness. What caught Nora's eye was the small spring bubbling up near the barn, feeding a pool of clear water before running off to join the creek. Hidden spring, Jack said, following her gaze. Only reliable water source for miles during drought years. My piece of paradise. Inside, the cabin was sparse but clean. One room served as kitchen and living space, with a lean-to bedroom attached. Jack lit a lamp against the gathering dusk while Nora stood awkwardly by the door. I'll sleep in the barn, he said without looking at her. You'll be safe here. There's a bar for the door, and I'll be within shouting distance. Mr. Callan, We should look at that ledger. He pulled out a chair at the rough table. See what a man died for. They opened the envelope together. Inside was indeed a ledger, pages covered with careful entries in different hands. As they studied it by lamplight, the scope of Whitcomb's corruption became clear. Look here. Nora pointed to a column. Payments to Judge Garrett, Marshal Purdy, even the tax assessor. And these notes, Henderson refuses sale, increase pressure. Martinez widow, wait 6 months then foreclose. Jack's face darkened. This entry's dated last month. Contaminate Wilson well, blame on cattle. Old Sam Wilson sold out 2 weeks later when his family took sick. This is monstrous. Nora traced more entries. He's systematically destroying anyone who won't sell their water rights. But why? Jack stood, pacing to the window. Railroad's coming through. Not official yet, but I've heard rumors. They'll need water for the steam engines. Lots of it. Whoever controls the water controls the route and the fortune that comes with it. So Whitcomb positions himself as the only supplier. Nora felt sick. All these families ruined for his greed. Question is, what do we do about it? Jack turned back to her. That ledger's evidence, but Whitcomb owns the local law. We'd need to get it to the territorial authorities in Cheyenne. That's 3 days' ride through country Whitcomb controls. Yeah. He rubbed his jaw. We need a plan. But first, you need food and rest. When's the last time you ate? Nora couldn't remember. The day's events had driven mundane needs from her mind. Jack busied himself at the stove, and soon the smell of coffee and frying salt pork filled the cabin. He added beans from a pot that had been simmering and sliced thick bread. It's not fancy, he said, setting a plate before her. It's perfect. And it was. After days of stage-stop food and Mrs. Paulson's questionable stew, the simple meal tasted wonderful. You've done this before. Cooking for yourself. 6 years now, since I mustered out. He sat across from her with his own plate. Before that, army cooking. You learned to make do. Cavalry, she'd noticed his military bearing. Captain, 3rd Colorado, did things I'm not proud of. His tone closed that door firmly. What about you? What sends a Boston lady to Dry Willow? Nora considered her answer. My father owned a shipping business. When his partner, Mr. Aldrich's son, began courting me, father was thrilled. The perfect merger. She kept her eyes on her plate. I didn't love him. Told father I wouldn't marry for his business convenience. Then one evening, young Mr. Aldrich cornered me in the library. Tried to press his suit. I defended myself with a paperweight. His father walked in just as I struck his son. Saw what he wanted to see. What was profitable to see? The scandal was contained. Barely. But my reputation was ruined. Father gave me traveling money and suggested I visit a distant cousin in Chicago indefinitely. She smiled bitterly. I kept traveling west instead. Their loss, Jack said simply. You've got courage. Not many would have started over alone. Or stupidity. No. His blue eyes were serious. I know the difference. They cleaned up in companionable silence. Outside, full dark had fallen, bringing cold that crept through the cabin walls. Jack added wood to the fire. I should check the horses, he said. Bar the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. After he left, Nora explored her temporary refuge. The cabin was obviously a bachelor's domain, but clean and organized. A few books sat on a shelf. Shakespeare, surprisingly, and some agricultural pamphlets. No photographs. Nothing personal except a cavalry sword mounted on the wall. A sound outside made her freeze. Not Jack's familiar footsteps, but something stealthier. She grabbed the poker from the fireplace, heart pounding. The latch rattled. Open up, Missy. We know you're in there. Harkins? How had they found her so quickly? Mr. Callan stepped out. She called, He'll return shortly. Harsh laughter. We saw him head to the barn. Got a man watching him. Now open this door, or we'll burn you out. Think Nora. The ledger lay on the table. She couldn't let them have it. But where to hide it, her eyes fell on the flour barrel in the corner. No, too obvious. The stove too hot. Then she spotted a loose chink between logs near the floor. Probably where mice got in. She grabbed the ledger and forced it through, wincing as pages crumpled. Glass shattered as a rifle butt smashed through the window. An arm reached for the bar. Nora swung the poker with all her strength, connecting with the searching hand. A howl of pain, cursing, but already they were hitting the door. Wood splintering. Where was Jack? The door crashed open. Harkins stood there with two other men, fury twisting his features. Where is it? I don't know what you mean. He backhanded her, sending her sprawling. The room spun as rough hands grabbed her arms, hauling her upright. The envelope Smith brought. Where? I burned it. Blood filled her mouth. It's gone. Another blow. Search the place. They tore through the cabin, upending furniture, scattering supplies. One man dumped out the flour barrel, creating a white cloud. They even pried up floorboards. Nothing, one reported. Harkins grabbed Nora's throat. You've got one chance. Tell us where. The gunshot was impossibly loud in the small space. Harkins jerked, his grip loosening, and crumpled. Jack stood in the doorway, smoking Colt in hand. Next man moves gets the same, he said conversationally. The two remaining men froze, hands half raised. Nora, you hurt. She touched her split lip. I'll live. Good, gentlemen. Unbuckle your gun belts. Slow. They complied, leather hitting the floor with heavy thuds. Now pick up your friend and get out. Tell Whitcomb if he wants that ledger. He'll have to do better than sending 3 fools in the night. They dragged Harkins out, his boot heels leaving red streaks. Jack kept his gun trained on them until hoofbeats faded into darkness. They'll be back, Nora said unnecessarily. Yeah, but not tonight. They'll need to regroup. Report to Whitcomb. He holstered his gun, surveying the wreckage. Where'd you hide it? She pointed to the chink. Jack used a knife to fish out the ledger, smoothing crumpled pages. Quick thinking. You did good. He noticed her shaking hands. Sit. I'll heat some water for that lip. You killed him. It wasn't an accusation, just recognition. He was choking you. Man who hurts women deserves what he gets. Jack's voice carried old anger. Seen too much of that. He brought warm water and a clean cloth, surprisingly gentle as he cleaned her split lip. This close. She could see the pain lines etched deep, the weight he carried. The war? She asked softly. After winter of '65 riding patrol in Kansas, found a homestead burned, family. Hurt bad before they died, caught the men responsible. His jaw tightened. Let's just say they didn't make it to trial.
I'm sorry.
A long time ago. But some things you don't forget, don't forgive. He sat back. We can't stay here. They know where to find us now. Where can we go? I've got a line shack up in the hills. Rough, but defensible. We'll leave before dawn. Throw them off. He studied her. Unless you want to run, I could get you on a stage to California. Away from this mess. Nora thought of the entries in the ledger, the families destroyed, the corruption spreading like poison. I'm not running. Someone needs to stop him. Even if it kills you.
Even then, she met his eyes. Some things are worth the risk.
Something shifted in his expression, respect, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. All right then, we make our stand together. He stood. Try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard. But sleep wouldn't come. Nora lay on Jack's narrow bed, listening to him moving about, fixing the door, cleaning up the mess. The violence had shaken her more than she'd admit. In Boston, conflicts were fought with words and social cuts. Here, death came sudden and final. Near dawn, Jack woke her. Time to go. They loaded supplies on the horses by moonlight blankets, ammunition, food for several days. The ledger went into Jack's saddlebags this time, wrapped in oilcloth and canvas. As they rode out, Nora looked back at the cabin. First light was touching the eastern sky, painting the logs gold. It looked peaceful, belying the violence of hours before. Will you be able to come back? She asked. Maybe. Depends how this plays out. Jack didn't sound concerned. Just a building. Home is He gestured at the hills, the spring, the vast sky. They can't take that, and they climbed steadily, following paths invisible to Nora's eyes. The horses labored in the thin air, and cold bit through her coat. Jack led them through a narrow canyon that opened into a small valley, protected on three sides by steep rock walls. The line shack was tiny, one room with a single window and a chimney, but it was solid, with a good view of the approach. Built this when I first claimed the land, Jack said, unsaddling the horses. Lived here a winter while I built the cabin. Inside was sparse but functional. A narrow bunk, a small stove, shelves with supplies. Jack immediately began preparing defenses, checking sight lines, cleaning weapons, organizing ammunition. Can you shoot? He asked. I can learn. He handed her a small revolver. This was my army backup. Point and squeeze. Don't jerk the trigger. He showed her how to load. Aim. Breathe. We'll practice when we can. They settled in to wait, taking turns watching the trail. Nora used the time to study the ledger more carefully, making notes of the worst crimes. The clearest evidence, if they could get this to honest authorities, Whitcomb's empire would crumble. On the second day, Jack spotted riders in the valley below. They milled about near the canyon entrance but didn't attempt it. Scared of bottlenecks, he explained. Good for us. But Nora knew they couldn't stay forever. Their supplies would run out. Whitcomb just had to wait. That night, as they shared a meager supper, she asked, Do you regret helping me? No. No hesitation. Been hiding on my ranch too long, pretending the world's troubles weren't mine. This feels right. Even if we don't survive it. He looked at her across the flickering lamp. There's worse things than dying for something worthwhile. Living with shame. For one. She understood. They were both running from different shames, seeking redemption in this impossible stand. Tomorrow we need to move. Jack said, They'll get brave eventually, but I've got an idea. As he outlined his plan, Nora felt a spark of hope. It was risky, possibly foolish, but it might work. If they were lucky, if they were brave enough, if they trusted each other completely. The first snow came like a whisper in the night. dusting the valley with white silence. Nora woke to Jack adding wood to the stove, his breath visible in the cold air. "Winter's early," he said. "That's good for us. Whitcomb's men won't like camping in this weather." They'd been in the line shack 4 days now. Yesterday's attempt to slip past the watchers had failed. Riders had appeared from nowhere, forcing them back into the canyon. But the snow changed things. Tracks would show, but so would pursuit. "We move tonight," Jack decided. "Storm's building. It'll cover us." Nora practiced with the revolver while they waited. Firing at pine cones, Jack set on rocks. Her aim improved, though her hands still shook with each shot. "You're thinking too much," he coached. "Trust your eye. Let your hand follow." Strange how comfortable they'd become in close quarters. She'd learned his routine's coffee before dawn, weapons check after breakfast, the way he absently rubbed his shoulder where an old wound ached in the cold. He'd learned hers too, how she hummed while cooking, her need to wash her face even with precious water, the way she studied the ledger like a battle plan. "Tell me about Hidden Spring," she said during one long afternoon. "How'd you find it?" Jack smiled, a rare, full expression that transformed his weathered features. "Chasing a wounded elk, led me right to it, then dropped dead in the shallows. Figured any place that gave me water and meat in one shot was meant to be home. And before, where's home originally? Ohio farm country, 6 kids, never enough food." His smile faded. "Joined up at 17, lied about my age, thought I was escaping hard times. Didn't know what hard was yet." That evening, as purple shadows filled the valley, Jack saddled the horses. The snow fell steadier now, thick flakes that stuck to everything. "We'll go up and over," he explained, pointing to what looked like sheer cliff. "There's an old Shoshone trail, steep, but it comes out near the Martinez place. Her husband rode with me in the war. She'll help." The climb was treacherous. Nora clung to her saddle horn as her mare picked its way up the invisible trail, hooves slipping on loose rock hidden under snow. Below, the valley disappeared into swirling white. If they fell... "Don't look down," Jack called back. "Trust your horse." Hours passed in cold misery. Nora's hands went numb inside her gloves. Ice formed on her eyelashes. Just when she thought she couldn't endure another moment, they crested the ridge. "There," Jack pointed through the snow at yellow lights below. "Almost home free." That's when they heard the shot. Jack jerked in his saddle, clutching his right arm. His rifle fell, clattering down the slope. "Ambush!" He wheeled his horse. "Ride!" More shots cracked through the storm. Nora kicked her mare hard, following Jack's weaving path down the treacherous slope. Behind them, shouts and pursuing hoofbeats. They burst out of a stand of pines into cleared land. A small adobe house sat dark against the snow, but Jack bypassed it, heading for a cluster of outbuildings. "In here!" He half fell from his horse, blood dark on his coat sleeve. Nora grabbed the horse's reins, leading them into what proved to be a root cellar built into a hillside. Jack barred the door, then slumped against the wall. "Let me see." She peeled back his coat, wincing at the blood. The bullet had torn through the meat of his upper arm. "Clean through," he gritted. "That's good." "Good you're shot." "Been shot before. This'll heal if it doesn't fester." He was already tearing his shirt for bandages. "We've got bigger problems." Indeed, they were trapped in a root cellar with limited supplies and Whitcomb's men outside. Nora helped bind Jack's wound, trying to ignore how her hands shook from cold or fear. She couldn't tell. "The Martinez house," she said. "Would they help?" "Widow Martinez would, but I won't bring trouble to her door. She's got kids." Jack tested his arm, grimacing. "We wait. They don't know exactly where we went." They huddled in the darkness, listening. The horses stamped nervously. Somewhere above, muffled by earth and snow, voices called to each other. "Nora." Jack's voice was strange.
If they find us, promise me you'll say I forced you, that you were my hostage.
I will not. It might save your life.
And destroy any honor I have left, no.
She found his good hand in the darkness, squeezed it.
We're in this together, to the end.
His fingers tightened on hers. For a moment, the cold and fear receded, leaving just this connection between them. Then footsteps crunched directly overhead.
Check every building,
Whitcomb's voice, harsh with authority.
They're here somewhere.
Jack drew his Colt awkwardly with his left hand. Nora pulled out the small revolver he'd given her. They waited, barely breathing. The footsteps moved away. Voices faded. After what felt like hours, Jack eased the door open a crack.
Snow's still falling hard, he whispered.
They've pulled back, probably waiting for daylight. Your arm needs proper tending.
Later, we need to...
He stopped, listening. A different sound scratching at the door.
Senor Jack,
a woman's whispered voice.
It's Rosa Martinez. I know you're in there.
Jack opened the door wider. A small woman in a heavy shawl slipped inside, carrying a basket.
Rosa, you shouldn't...
Quiet. I saw the blood in the snow. She was already examining his arm by feel.
The men, they search the barn now. You come to my house, quick!
Can't bring danger to your family.
My Miguel, he would haunt me if I turned away his captain.
Her voice brooked no argument.
Besides, they already searched my house. Won't look again. Come.
They followed her through the swirling snow. Nora leading the horses to a small lean-to behind the adobe house. Inside, warmth and lamplight seemed like miracles.
Sit,
Rosa commanded Jack, already heating water. 3 small faces peeked from a doorway, her children, wide-eyed at the midnight drama. Back to bed, mijos, Rosa said gently.
Just travelers from the storm.
As she cleaned and properly bandaged Jack's arm, Nora told her about the ledger, Whitcomb's crimes. Rosa's face darkened. That man, after my Miguel died, he came with offers for our land. When I refused, our well went bad. Had to haul water 3 miles until the spring rains cleaned it. She tied off the bandage with sharp jerks.
Many families have such stories.
Would they testify? Nora asked.
If we could get the ledger to honest authorities.
Against Baron Whitcomb, who owns the judge, the marshal. Rosa shook her head. Fear runs deep.
What if...
Jack spoke slowly, thinking aloud. What if we didn't go to the authorities? What if we brought the authorities here? Nora caught on.
The territorial marshal in Cheyenne? If we could telegraph...
Telegraph lines go through Whitcomb's ranch, Rosa said.
His men control what messages go out.
Then we go around him. Jack's eyes lit with planning. Rosa, your cousin works at the hotel in Grayson, 30 miles north.
See, but...
They have a telegraph there. Independent line for the mining companies. He turned to Nora. You could make it. Take the ledger. Send word to Cheyenne.
And leave you here wounded. I'll follow when I can. Day or 2. This arm will be usable.
The storm will break by morning, Rosa added. Whitcomb's men will move on, thinking you escaped south. Nora wanted to protest, but saw the logic. Jack couldn't ride hard with his wound, and someone had to get word out before Whitcomb silenced them permanently.
I'll need different clothes,
she said finally.
Something that won't draw notice.
Rosa smiled.
I have my Miguel's things still. You're tall for a woman could pass for a young vaquero.
Dawn came gray and bitter cold. The storm had passed, leaving 2 feet of snow that would make tracking easy but also show if anyone followed. Nora stood awkwardly in Miguel's clothes-worn trousers, heavy coat, hat pulled low. Remember, Jack instructed. Stay off the main road. Follow Willow Creek north until you hit the mining road. If someone stops you, you're Miguel Martinez heading to the mines for work. And if they don't believe me, He pressed the small revolver into her hand. "Then you do what you must." His eyes held hers. "I wish I could go with you." "I know." She wanted to say more, how these strange days had changed her, how his steady presence had become necessary, but Rosa was watching and time was short. "I'll send that telegram, then I'll come back." "I'll be waiting." She mounted the horse Rosa had saddled a sturdy Mustang who knew the trails. The ledger was secure in the saddlebags, wrapped in oilcloth. One last look at Jack, standing favoring his wounded arm, and she rode out into the white silence. The first hours passed peacefully. She followed the creek as instructed, the Mustang picking his way carefully through the drifts. The sun emerged, making the snow sparkle like crushed diamonds. Despite everything, Nora felt a surge of exhilaration. She was alone in this vast landscape, dependent on her own skills and courage. The scared Boston girl who'd stepped off the stage seemed like someone from another life. Near midday, she stopped to rest the horse and eat the food Rosa had packed. That's when she heard them horses approaching from the south. Her heart hammered as she led the Mustang into a thick stand of aspens, holding his nose to keep him quiet. 2 riders passed, heads down against the glare. Whitcomb's men, searching. They didn't look up, didn't see her tracks leading off the trail. She waited until they were long gone before emerging. More careful now, she kept to the trees when possible. The mining road appeared by late afternoon, rutted tracks worn by ore wagons. Traffic here, safety in numbers. She fell in behind a group of miners heading to town after their shift. Grayson sprawled in a valley. All hasty construction and muddy streets. The hotel was easy to find, 3 stories of raw lumber with Grand Hotel painted optimistically across the front. Nora stabbed the Mustang and went inside, trying to walk like a young man in a hurry. The telegraph office occupied a corner of the lobby. The operator, a thin man with green eyeshade, looked up impatiently. "Need to send a message to Cheyenne," Nora said, deepening her voice. "Urgent." "Urgent costs extra." She slid coins across the counterpart of Jack's emergency fund. "Send this Federal Marshal Reeves. Come immediately, Dry Willow. Have evidence Baron Whitcomb corruption murder. Bring deputies. Trust no local law. Sign it, Concerned Citizens." The operator's fingers flew over the keys. "Sending blind, no reply address. I'll wait in town for response." She took a room, still in Miguel's clothes, and locked the door before pulling out the ledger. Tomorrow she'd need to find a way to copy the most damning pages, create multiple records in case something happened to the original. A knock startled her. "Message reply," the operator's voice called. She opened the door cautiously. He handed her a slip of paper. "Marshal Reeves departing tomorrow with 6 deputies. Arrive Dry Willow 3 days. Maintain safety until then." 3 days. She had to get word to Jack. Warn the scattered families who might testify. And stay alive while Whitcomb's net tightened. That night, she lay wakeful in the strange bed, missing the sound of Jack's breathing, the solid sense of his presence. Was his wound healing? Had Whitcomb's men found him? Morning brought new challenges. The hotel clerk mentioned strangers asking about a woman traveling alone. Nora pulled the hat lower and mumbled about heading to the mines. But she couldn't stay hidden forever. She spent the day copying ledger pages in her room, then found a lawyer's office that would notarize them. The lawyer, a dried-up man who reeked of whiskey, didn't ask questions when she paid in gold coins. "Want these sent somewhere?" he offered. "I'll handle it." She didn't trust anyone in this town. That evening, restlessness drove her to the hotel saloon. Maybe she could hear news from Dry Willow. She nursed a beer in a corner, hat low, listening to miners' gossip. "Heard Whitcomb's fit to be tied. Someone stole important papers." "He's got men searching every ranch, offering big rewards. Won't matter once the railroad deal's done. He'll own everything anyway." Railroad deal. Nora's ears perked up, but before she could hear more, a hand fell on her shoulder. Well, what have we here?" She turned to find Mace Doolin, Whitcomb's foreman, grinning down at her. His eyes glittered with cruel pleasure.
"Funny thing," he said conversationally. "Boss said look for a woman, but something about you seemed familiar, boy." His grip tightened. "Let's step outside. Have a talk." Nora's mind raced as Doolin's grip tightened on her shoulder. The saloon noise continued around them, miners laughing, cards slapping on tables, but she felt trapped in a bubble of danger. "I think you're mistaken, sir," she said, keeping her voice low and rough. "Just came from the Martinez ranch, looking for work."
"Martinez, huh?"
Doolin's eyes narrowed. "Funny thing, I was just there yesterday. Rosa said she hadn't seen any strangers." His free hand moved toward his gun.
"Now, we can do this easy or hard."
Nora let her shoulders slump in defeat, then drove her elbow hard into his stomach. As he doubled over, she bolted for the door. Shouts erupted behind her, chairs crashing as Doolin bellowed for help. The street was dark, lit only by saloon windows. Nora ran, Miguel's boots slipping in the muddy snow. Behind her, boots pounded and men called to each other. She ducked into an alley, pressed against cold wood siding, trying to control her breathing. Footsteps passed, then returned, slower. "I know you're here," Doolin called. "Might as well come out. Boss wants you alive, but accidents happen in the dark." A cat yowled somewhere, making her jump. The sound gave away her position. Doolin lunged around the corner, grabbing for her. She pulled the revolver, fired wild. The sound was enormous in the narrow alley. Doolin cursed, clutching his shoulder, and she ran again. The livery stable loomed ahead. She burst in, startling the night boy dozing in the hay. "My horse," she gasped. "The Mustang! Quick!"
"But mister, you paid through tomorrow."
She shoved money at him.
"Saddle him now."
Hands shaking. She helped with the buckles. Shouts grew closer. No time for the saddlebags in the hotel. The ledger copies would have to wait. At least she had the original. She swung up just as Doolin appeared in the doorway, blood dark on his coat.
"Stop her!"
But Nora was already spurring the Mustang through the back exit, ducking low as a shot splintered the door frame. Then they were out, racing through Grayson's back streets toward the open country. The Mustang knew his business, finding footing despite the treacherous ground. Behind them, pursuit organized, lanterns bobbing, dogs baying. Nora gave the horse his head, trusting his instincts. They fled south through the darkness, following trails she couldn't see. The sounds of pursuit faded, but she didn't slow. Doolin would guess where she was headed. She had to warn Jack and Rosa. Dawn found her miles from anywhere familiar, the Mustang lathered and blowing. She stopped at a frozen creek, breaking ice so they could drink. Her hands were numb, her body one vast ache from the hard riding. Which way the mountains looked different from this angle. She tried to remember Jack's lessons about reading the land, finding direction. There, that notched peak. If she kept it on her left. By noon, familiar landmarks appeared, but so did fresh horse tracks in the snow. Many horses moving fast toward the Martinez ranch. She pushed the exhausted Mustang harder. The adobe house appeared through the cottonwoods, looking peaceful. Too peaceful. No smoke from the chimney. Nora dismounted at the edge of the trees. Approaching on foot, the front door stood open. Darkness beyond. Her heart sank. "Rosa," she called softly. "Jack." Movement in the barn. She spun, raising the revolver, then sagged with relief as Jack emerged, rifle in hand. His right arm was still bound, but obviously functional. "Nora, thank God." He pulled her into the shadows. "Doolin's men came through an hour ago. We saw them coming, got Rosa and the children hidden." "Where?" "A root cellar where we hid before. They searched the house, but missed it." His face was grim. "They know you reached Grayson. Doolin's stirring up every gun Whitcomb owns. The telegram went through.
Marshal Reeves will be here in 2 days with deputies." 2 days. Jack looked at the churned snow where horses had milled. "Might as well be 2 years. Whitcomb won't wait. He'll clean house before federal law arrives." "Then we need to protect the witnesses. Warn the families mentioned in the ledger." "Already started. Sent Rosa's oldest boy to the Kowalski farm, her nephew to warn the Shoshone camp." Jack studied her face, noting the exhaustion. "You did good, getting word out. Now we need to fort up somewhere until help comes. Where they'll check your ranch, here, everywhere we might go." Jack was quiet for a moment. "There's one place. Not comfortable, but defensible. The old mining camp at Buckhorn Canyon. Abandoned 5 years back when the silver played out. Can Rosa and the children make it?" "Have to. Staying here means death or worse." He touched her face gently. "You're about done in. Rest while I get them ready." But rest was impossible. Nora helped Rosa pack essentials food, blankets, the children's warmest clothes. The 3 little ones watched with solemn eyes, understanding something bad was happening. "It's an adventure," Rosa told them firmly, "like when Papa took you camping." They set out as shadows lengthened, a strange procession through the snow. Jack led, rifle ready. Rosa rode their gentle mare with her youngest, while the 2 older children shared the Mustang. Nora walked, leading the pack horse, every step an effort. The trail climbed steadily into the mountains. Snow began falling again, which Jack said was good. It would cover their tracks, but it made travel harder, especially for the children. "How much farther?" The middle child, Luis, whimpered. "Not far now, mijo," Rosa soothed. "Be brave like your papa." Full dark had fallen when they reached Buckhorn Canyon. The abandoned buildings huddled against the canyon wall like broken teeth. Wind whistled through gaps in walls, and snow had drifted through collapsed roofs. "The assay office is still solid," Jack said, leading them to a stone building with iron shutters. "Built to protect gold. It'll do." Inside, it was cold as a tomb, but dry. Jack and Nora worked to make it livable while Rosa settled the children. They found old timbers to board up the broken window, built a fire in the still functional stove. Slowly, the space warmed. "I'll take first watch," Jack said. "Your arm." "Is fine. You're dead on your feet. Sleep." Nora wanted to protest but couldn't. She collapsed onto a blanket near the children, asleep almost instantly. She woke to urgent voices. Gray light filtered through cracks in the shutters. Dawn-numbered still night. The fire had died to embers. "Riders coming up the canyon," someone was saying. Not Jack's voice. "Who?" She sat up, confused. A man she didn't recognize stood by the door, talking urgently with Jack, lean and weathered, with careful eyes. "Tom Kowalski," Jack said, seeing her awake. "His family got my warning, came here like we planned, but Whitcomb's men are right behind them." "How many?" "Dozen, maybe more." Tom said, "My Anna and our girls are hiding in the mine shaft with the others. But those men, they're not taking prisoners anymore." Through the window, Nora could see lights approaching, torches wavering in the wind. They had minutes, maybe less. "We make our stand here," Jack decided. "Stone walls, good sight lines. Tom, you still shoot like you did in the war?" "Haven't forgotten." "Good. Nora, you and Rosa get the children into that back corner, behind the ore scales. Pile up anything that'll stop a bullet." They worked frantically, creating a barricade. Outside, the lights grew closer. Nora could hear voices now, Doolin's harsh tones carrying over the wind. "Callan, we know you're in there. Send out the woman and the ledger, and we ride away. Otherwise—" He left the threat hanging. "Go to hell, Doolin," Jack called back. "Have it your way. Boys, burn them out." Fire arrows began arcing through the night, thudding into walls, seeking the roof. Most hit stone and died, but some found wood. Smoke began seeping in. Jack and Tom fired through the shutters, picking targets. Men screamed and fell, but there were too many, pressing closer. "The roof's catching," Tom reported. Indeed, flames were licking along the rafters. Soon the whole building would be an oven. "There's an escape tunnel," Rosa said suddenly. "Miguel told me. The miners dug it in case of cave-ins. Behind those barrels—" Jack and Tom shoved the barrels aside, revealing a narrow opening. "Take the children and go," Jack ordered. "Get deep in the mine. We'll hold them." "You'll die," Nora protested. "Maybe, but you'll live. Go." Rosa was already pushing children through the opening. Nora grabbed the ledger, looked back at Jack. So much unsaid between them. "I'll find you," he promised. "Whatever happens, now go." She plunged into darkness. Following Rosa's voice, the tunnel was tight, jagged with rocks. Behind them, gunfire intensified. Then a crash, the roof falling. They emerged into a larger chamber, part of the old mine works. Other families huddled there, the Kowalskis, the Hendersons, who'd supposedly left, others she didn't recognize. All the people Whitcomb had tried to destroy, gathered in the dark. "Listen," someone whispered. The gunfire had stopped. Voices echoed down the tunnel, getting closer. They'd found the escape route. Nora looked around desperately. The chamber had other exits tunnels leading deeper into the mountain. But where did they go? One wrong choice, and they'd be trapped. "This way," an old Shoshone man said quietly. "I work these mines. Follow me." They plunged deeper. A string of refugees fleeing through the earth. The children whimpered but didn't cry out. Behind them, pursuit sounds grew fainter. Their hunters were being cautious in the unfamiliar tunnels. Time lost meaning in the darkness. Turn after turn, chamber after chamber. Finally, the guide called a halt. "Rest here. They won't find us now." They collapsed against cold stone. Nora still clutched the ledger. Her reason for all this suffering. Was Jack alive, Tom? The not knowing was agony. "Look," one of the children whispered. A faint light ahead, dawn light. The tunnel opened onto a ledge high on the canyon wall. Far below, smoke rose from the burning assay office. Men milled around it, but at this distance she couldn't identify individuals. "There's a trail," their guide said. "Leads to the high meadows. From there. Town is half a day." "We can't go to town," someone protested. "Whitcomb owns it." "The federal marshals will be there tomorrow," Nora said. "We just have to stay free until then." They began the precarious descent. The children had to be carried in places, more than once. Rocks gave way, sending people sliding, but they persevered, driven by desperation. By full daylight, they'd reached the meadow, a dozen families, exhausted, frightened, but alive and determined. Nora saw it in their faces. Whitcomb had pushed too far. Win or lose, they wouldn't run anymore. "We need to split up," she decided. "Harder to catch. Meet at the church tomorrow noon. That's when the marshals should arrive." "What about you?" Rosa asked. Nora looked back at the smoke rising from the canyon. "I need to know what happened to Jack." "That's suicide, child." Maybe, but she couldn't leave without knowing. She'd come too far, changed too much, to abandon him now. She gave Rosa the ledger. "Keep this safe. If something happens to me, give it to Marshal Reeves." "Nora!" But she was already moving, circling back toward danger. The Mustang was played out, but she found a miner's mule, sturdy and sure-footed. As she rode back down the mountain, she tried not to think about what she might find. The sun climbed higher, warming the air. Snow began melting, revealing the earth beneath. Spring would come, eventually. The question was whether any of them would live to see it. At the canyon mouth, she dismounted, approaching on foot. Voices ahead centuries. She circled wide, using skills Jack had taught her. Move with the wind. Step where snow was thin. Breathe steady. There, the burned assay office. Roof collapsed. Walls blackened. Bodies in the snow. But at this distance, her heart hammered. She crept closer. One of the bodies moved. The body moved again, not a death twitch, but purposeful movement. Someone was alive among the carnage. Nora's heart leaped, but she forced herself to remain still, watching. Whitcomb's sentries patrolled the canyon mouth, but their attention was focused outward, not on the battlefield they'd already won. She waited until they moved away on their rounds, then crept forward, using the smoke-blackened rubble for cover. The moving figure resolved into Tom Kowalski, blood soaking his left side, trying to drag himself toward the shelter of a boulder. "Tom," she whispered, crawling to him. "It's Nora." His eyes focused with effort. Thought you got away." "I did, but I came back. Where's Jack?" Tom's face contorted. "They took him, alive. Doolin wanted him to watch while they..." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "While they burned the office." "How long ago?" "Hour, maybe 2. Headed back to town. Whitcomb once. Public example." His hand gripped hers weakly. "My Anna, the girls." "Safe, hidden with the others." She tore strips from her coat, trying to staunch his bleeding. "We need to get you out of here." "No, too late for me. But Jack, still chance." She knew he was right. Moving him would only hasten his death. "What can I do?" "Pike, the blacksmith. He's not what he seems. Tell him Tom's debt is called. He'll understand." "Tom, go before sentries come back." His voice was fading. "Tell Anna I love them all." Nora squeezed his hand, then slipped away as silently as she'd come. Behind her, Tom Kowalski breathed his last, another casualty in Whitcomb's war against anyone who dared defy him. She rode hard for Dry Willow, plans racing through her mind. Pike, the blacksmith, she remembered Jack mentioning him as a false ally who'd betrayed evidence. But Tom seemed to think he could be turned. A debt called. What did that mean? The town appeared ahead, bustling with unusual activity. Extra horses at the saloon, men she didn't recognize walking the streets. Whitcomb had called in reinforcements for whatever example he planned to make of Jack. She couldn't ride in openly. Instead, she circled to the back of town, leaving the mule hidden in a wash. Pike's smithy sat on the edge of town, the ring of hammer on anvil carrying clearly. The big man worked alone, muscles bunching as he shaped a horseshoe. Nora waited until he paused to wipe sweat, then stepped from the shadows. "Mr. Pike." He spun, reaching for a hammer, then froze, seeing her gun trained on him. "You're supposed to be dead or fled." "Tom Kowalski sent me. Said to tell you his debt is called." Pike's florid face went pale. The hammer slipped from his fingers, clanging on the packed earth. "Tom's dead. Dying when I left him. Your information to Whitcomb led them right to us. I didn't know. They said they just wanted to talk." He sank onto a bench, head in hands. "Tom saved my life once, in the war. Pulled me from under dead horses at Chickamauga, and I repaid him with betrayal." "You can still make it right. Where's Jack Callan?" "Jail, but not for long." Pike looked up, tears tracking through soot on his face. "Whitcomb staging a hanging, tomorrow noon, right when that federal marshal is supposed to arrive. Wants to show even you, law can't touch him here." "Then we stop it." "We, lady, there's 24 hired guns in town. What can you and a guilt-ridden blacksmith do?" Nora thought of the families hidden in the mountains. The evidence Rosa guarded, the federal help racing toward them. All the pieces of a desperate gamble. "More than you think," she said. "But first, I need information. Everything about Whitcomb's plans." Through the afternoon, they worked. Pike proved invaluable. Once committed, he'd shod horses for most of Whitcomb's men, heard their talk, The hanging was set for noon, public spectacle in front of the jail. Whitcomb himself would pull the lever, claiming his right as the injured party. "He's got men on every road out of town," Pike warned, "and sharpshooters on the hotel roof in case anyone tries a rescue. What about the townspeople? Surely some oppose this." Scared silent, Whitcomb made examples before burned out the minister who spoke against him, ran the newspaper editor out of town. People got families to protect. But fear could turn to courage if given hope. Nora sent Pike on errands, quiet words to those who'd suffered under Whitcomb's rule. Reminders that federal justice was coming if they could just delay the hanging. Night fell. Nora crept through the darkened town, placing herself where she could watch the jail. Jack was in there, probably hurt, certainly guarded. Every instinct screamed to attempt rescue, but that would only get them both killed. She needed to be smarter. Near midnight, opportunity came. Doolin emerged from the jail, calling to the guards. "I'm going to get some sleep. Boss wants Callan healthy for tomorrow. Makes better spectacle if he can stand on his own. Don't rough him up anymore." After Doolin left, the guards relaxed, passing a bottle between them. Nora waited until they were well into it, then approached boldly. "Evening, boys. Mr. Whitcomb sent me to check on the prisoner." She'd changed back into a dress borrowed from Pike's absent wife, counting on darkness and whiskey to blur details. "Didn't hear nothing about that," one slurred. "Because Mr. Whitcomb doesn't announce everything to hired help." She snapped in her best Boston society voice. "Now open that door, or explain to him why you prevented his personal business." They fumbled with keys, cowed by authority. The jail was small, 2 cells, 1 occupied. Jack sat on a narrow bunk, face battered but eyes alert. Those eyes widened seeing her. "5 minutes," she told the guards. "Wait outside. This is private matter." They shuffled out, leaving her alone with Jack. She rushed to the bars. "Nora, what are you doing here?" "Tom Kowalski's dead. Rosa and the children are safe with others. Federal marshals arrive tomorrow." She gripped the iron bars. "We're going to stop this." "No." His voice was fierce. "You're going to get far away. Let the law handle Whitcomb." "The same law that let him terrorize this valley for years, no. This ends tomorrow, one way or another." He stood, moved to the bars despite obvious pain. "Nora, please. I've faced death before, but knowing you're safe would make it bearable. And knowing I abandoned you would make life unbearable." She touched his battered face through the bars. "I'm done running. Jack, from scandal, from fear, from feelings I don't understand. We stand together." He caught her hand, pressed it to his lips. "Stubborn woman." "Stubborn man." "Time's up," a guard called. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "Be ready." Outside, she thanked the guards with queenly condescension, then vanished into darkness. Let them report to Whitcomb, it would only confuse him, make him wonder what game she played. Dawn came cold and bright. Nora watched from Pike's loft as the town stirred. Already people gathered, some eager for spectacle, others drawn by morbid curiosity. Whitcomb's men took positions, rooftops, corners, strategic points. A scaffold had been erected outside the jail, the rope dangling like an accusation. But other movements caught her eye. A ranch wagon rolling in with what looked like a family come for supplies, but she recognized the Henderson patriarch driving. A group of miners heading for breakfast, except they walked too purposefully. Hands near hidden weapons. Pike had spread word well. Near 11, she saw dust on the eastern road. Riders coming fast. The federal marshals too early, but maybe they'd pushed through the night. Hope flared. But as the riders resolved into view, her heart sank. More of Whitcomb's reinforcements. Come to ensure his show of power went unopposed. The odds grew longer. Noon approached with terrible swiftness. The crowd thickened. Whitcomb appeared on the hotel balcony, dressed in his finest suit like a baron indeed.
He raised his hands for silence.
Citizens of Dry Willow, today you witness justice. This man, he pointed as guards brought Jack from the jail, stole from me, harbored a female thief, murdered my men. The law demands satisfaction.
Jack stood straight despite bound hands, bruises livid on his face. His eyes searched the crowd, found Nora in the loft window. A slight nod, be ready.
Any last words?
Callan, Whitcomb sneered. Jack's voice carried clearly. Yeah, you forgot something. Baron, this is Wyoming. We got a saying here.
A commotion at the crowd's edge. Rosa Martinez pushed through, the ledger held high.
This book, she cried. It shows all crimes, murder, theft. Poison wells I give to federal marshal.
There's no marshal here. Woman. Whitcomb snarled. Seize her!
But the crowd had shifted. Those planted allies moving to protect Rosa. Women who'd lost husbands. Men who'd lost farms. Children who'd lost fathers, all standing between Whitcomb's guns and the evidence.
The people have spoken. A new voice boomed.
Everyone turned. There in the street stood not the federal marshal, but Father Miguel from the burned-out church, thought to have fled months ago. Behind him, more townspeople emerged from buildings, alleys, gathering courage from numbers. You burned God's house, the priest continued. Drove out his servants, but faith returns. Senor Whitcomb, as does justice.
Shoot them! Whitcomb screamed. Shoot them all!
But his men hesitated. Shooting one man was business. Massacring a town was something else. In that moment of uncertainty, Pike struck. The blacksmith had positioned himself near the scaffold supports. His massive hammer swung, shattering the main beam. The platform tilted, spilling Jack and the guards. Nora was already moving, dropping from the loft to the street. Chaos erupted. Some of Whitcomb's men fled. Others fought, but found themselves outnumbered as more townspeople joined in. Nora dodged through the melee, reaching Jack as he struggled to his feet, hands still bound. Hold still. She cut his bonds with a stolen knife.
Behind you,
he shouted. She spun to find Doolin bearing down. Gun raised. No time to think, she drew and fired in one motion. Tom's lessons flooding back. Doolin stumbled, clutching his gun arm, curse dying on his lips. The hotel. Jack grabbed a fallen rifle. Whitcomb. They fought toward the building where Whitcomb had retreated with his remaining loyalists. Bodies littered the street, some moving, some not. Pike wielded his hammer like a medieval warrior. Rosa had vanished with the ledger, hopefully to safety. Father Miguel prayed over fallen men even as bullets whined past. They reached the hotel lobby to find Whitcomb at the stairs, pearl-handled revolver steady. You've ruined everything, he said conversationally. Years of planning, building an empire, for what, some misguided notion of justice. For Hidden Spring, Jack said. For the Wilsons' poisoned well, for every family you destroyed. Sentiment. Whitcomb's finger tightened on the trigger. Bad for business. 3 guns fired simultaneously. Whitcomb's shot went wide as Jack and Nora's bullets struck home. The Baron looked surprised as red bloomed on his white shirt. The pearl-handled gun fell from nerveless fingers. My railroad, he whispered, then toppled down the stairs. Outside, the fighting was ending. Whitcomb's hired guns, seeing their paymaster fall, threw down weapons or fled. Townspeople stood dazed, hardly believing what they'd accomplished. Then, cutting through everything, came the sound of a bugle. Military notes, clear and true. The crowd parted as riders in federal badges entered the street. Marshal Reeves had arrived late for the hanging, but in time for the aftermath. Someone want to explain this, the marshal demanded, surveying the battlefield. Rosa stepped forward, ledger extended. It's all here, Senor Marshal, everything. The next hours passed in a blur. Statements taken, wounded tended, dead counted. Whitcomb's empire unraveled as subordinates rushed to confess, hoping for leniency.
The Baron himself still breathed. Barely, closely guarded as the doctor worked. Finally, as sunset painted the mountains gold, Nora found herself with Jack by the horse trough, washing blood from their hands. "It's over," she said wonderingly. "The fighting is... Rest will take time. Trials, rebuilding trust." He studied her face. "You could go back east now. Clear your name with Whitcomb's confession about the planted evidence. Is that what you want?" "No." Simple, direct. "But I want you to choose freely, not because you're trapped." Nora looked around the battered town, the weary but victorious people, the vast sky stretching endlessly. Then at Jack, steady and true despite everything. "I choose here," she said. "I choose you, if you'll have me." His answer was in his kiss, gentle despite split lips, while around them Dry Willow began the long work of healing. 3 weeks had passed since the showdown in Dry Willow's streets. The federal investigation continued, with Marshal Reeves and his deputies conducting thorough interviews and gathering evidence. Baron Whitcomb, recovering under guard from his wounds, had been transferred to Cheyenne to await trial. His network of corruption was unraveling daily, with more accomplices coming forward to testify in exchange for leniency. So, Nora stood in the post office, sorting mail with practiced efficiency. Ezra had returned to his duties, though his back still troubled him. The morning sun slanted through clean windows the townspeople had pitched in to repair damage from the conflict, and fresh paint brightened the building's exterior. "Letter for you, Miss Hale," Ezra said, sliding an envelope across the counter. "Boston postmark." Nora recognized her father's handwriting. She'd written to him weeks ago, explaining her situation and choices. His response had taken time to arrive, with trembling fingers. She opened it. "My dear daughter," it began. "Your letter brought both relief and surprise. Relief that you are well. Surprise at the extraordinary circumstances you describe. Mr. Aldrich and his son have departed for European ventures after certain irregularities in their accounts came to light. Your reputation here has been restored, should you wish to return." "Bad news," Jack's voice made her look up. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, concern creasing his features. "My father, he says I can come home. The scandal has passed." Something flickered in Jack's eyes, fear before his expression smoothed. "That's good news. You have choices now." She came around the counter to him. These weeks had deepened what existed between them, though neither had spoken of the future. They'd been too busy, Jack helping reorganize the town's leadership, Nora assisting families with legal documents for the federal investigation. "I made my choice in the street that day," she said softly. "Nothing in Boston changes that." His shoulders relaxed. "Even so, you should know all your options. There's something I need to show you." He offered his arm. "Ezra, can you spare her for the morning?" The old postmaster waved them away with a knowing smile. "Go on. Mail's not going anywhere." They rode out to Jack's ranch, the familiar trail somehow different now. Spring was fully upon them. Wildflowers dotting the grasslands, hidden spring running high with snowmelt. The cabin had been repaired, the barn door rehung, but Jack led her past the buildings to a rise overlooking the valley. "My land stretches from here to that far ridge," he said, dismounting. 800 acres, good water, decent grass. It's not much compared to what you knew in Boston." "Jack." "Let me finish. I've been thinking about the future. The railroad is coming through for certain now. Honest negotiations this time. They'll need beef for the workers, supplies for the towns that'll spring up. A man could build something here. A family could prosper." He pulled papers from his saddlebag. "I've been to the land office. Had these drawn up?" He handed them to her with uncharacteristic nervousness. Nora read, eyes widening. "You're deeding me half your ranch." "Partnership papers, equal shares. You'd be taking a risk ranching's hard work, uncertain profits, but you'd never be dependent on anyone's charity or goodwill. You'd have your own land, your own..." She silenced him with a kiss, papers crumpling between them. When they finally parted, she was laughing and crying simultaneously. "Jack Callan, are you proposing to me with legal documents?" Color rose in his weathered cheeks. "I'm not much for pretty words. Figured you'd want security more than speeches." "You figured wrong." She framed his face with her hands. "I want the words too." He pulled her close, speaking into her hair. "I love you, Nora Hale. Love your courage, your stubbornness, the way you stood tall when everything went to hell. I'm offering half of everything I have, but I'm hoping you'll take all of me along with it." "Yes," she whispered, "to all of it." They stood together on the rise, looking out over land that would be theirs. "Finally." Jack stirred. "There's more to show you. Been working on something." He led her to a cleared area near Hidden Spring where fresh lumber lay stacked. Stone foundations marked out a structure considerably larger than the existing cabin. "Figured we'd need more room," he said. "Proper kitchen, maybe a study for your books. Room to grow." "You've been planning this." "Pike's been helping. Man's determined to make amends for his betrayal. Won't take payment neither." Jack pointed to different areas. "Thought windows here to catch morning light, porch facing the mountains. What do you think?" What she thought was too complex for words: gratitude, love, excitement for a future she could barely imagine. Instead, she said, "Show me everything." They spent the morning walking the property, planning where to expand the garden, how to improve irrigation from the spring, which pastures would serve for different seasons. Jack's vision expanded with her input, becoming something neither could achieve alone. "We'll need help," Nora said practically. "Hands for the cattle, someone for the heavy work." "Been thinking on that. The Kowalski boys need work now their pa's gone. And some of the miners are looking to change trades now the territorial government's shutting down unsafe operations." They were riding back to town when they met Rosa Martinez heading their way, her wagon loaded with possessions. "Rosa," Nora called. "Where are you going?" The widow's face was drawn. "Away. Cannot stay where Miguel's memory lives in every corner." "But your home is full of ghosts." Rosa's voice broke. "The children, they cry for their papa. I cry too. Better to start fresh with my sister in Santa Fe." Nora looked at Jack, saw her own thought reflected in his eyes. "Rosa, wait. What if you didn't have to leave? What if you had work that gave you a new home but kept you close to Miguel's resting place?" Rosa's brow furrowed. "What work? I have no skills but keeping house and raising children." "Exactly the skills we need," Jack said, understanding Nora's direction. "We're building a new house. We'll need help running it. And Lord knows I can't cook worth anything. Partnership share of profits. Cabin for you and the children. What do you say?" Hope dawned in Rosa's face, then faded. "You pity me." "We need you," Nora corrected firmly. "I know nothing about managing a ranch household. Jack knows nothing about anything domestic. Without help, we'll be eating burnt beans until we starve." "The children." "We'll have space to run, animals to tend. Useful work as they grow," Jack added. "Better than town life." Rosa was crying now, but smiling through tears. "Miguel would say I am foolish to refuse. Yes, yes, we come." They helped her turn the wagon around, the children chattering excitedly about living on a real ranch. As they parted ways, Rosa to pack properly, Jack and Nora to town. Nora felt pieces falling into place. "That was well done," Jack said quietly. "It was practical. We do need help. And she needs purpose. Sometimes the practical choice is also the kind one." In town, they found unexpected bustle. A special election was being organized to replace the corrupt officials. Pike had been nominated for sheriff, of all things. His public repentance and crucial help during the fight, earning forgiveness. Other positions were being debated in the saloon, which had become an impromptu town hall. "Jack," Father Miguel called out, "we need you. They want to make me mayor." Tell them that's ridiculous." "Why is it ridiculous?" Jack asked, guiding Nora through the crowd. "You're educated, honest, and survived Whitcomb's worst. Sounds like qualifications to me." "I'm a priest. Part-time mayor, full-time priest," someone suggested. "Not like we can afford to pay much anyway." The debate continued good-naturedly. Nora found herself drawn into discussions about establishing a school, improving the postal routes, creating fair water-sharing agreements. These people had tasted freedom from corruption and were determined to build something better. "Miss Hale." Marshal Reeves appeared at her elbow. "A word." They stepped outside onto the boardwalk. The marshal, a stern man with penetrating eyes, had interviewed her several times about the events leading to Whitcomb's downfall. "I'll be heading back to Cheyenne tomorrow," he said. "Wanted to thank you personally. Without that ledger and your courage in preserving it, we'd have had no case. Many people showed courage, Marshal." "True, but you were the catalyst. You and Callan both." He studied her. "There's talk of establishing a formal territorial court system out here. They'll need clerks, administrators, someone who can read and write well, understand legal documents. Interested." I'm getting married. Marshal, building a ranch?" "Part-time position. Few days a month. The territory needs educated women in official positions. Miss Hale sets a good example." He touched his hat. "Think about it." After he left, Nora stood on the boardwalk, marveling at how much had changed. 3 months ago, she'd stepped off the stage, desperate and alone. Now she had a home, a future, a purpose larger than she'd imagined. Jack emerged from the saloon, Father Miguel in tow. "Congratulations, Your Honor," Jack was saying. "First Mexican-American mayor in the territory, I'd wager." "Temporary," Father Miguel insisted. "Only until we find someone proper." "Nora." Jack took her arm. "The Padres agreed to perform a wedding ceremony. Question is when." "Soon," she said, surprising herself with the urgency. "Why wait?" "Music to my ears. How about next Sunday? Give folks time to prepare. Rosa to get you a proper dress made." "Sunday it is." Word spread through the saloon, producing cheers and immediate planning. The women descended on Nora with fabric suggestions and recipe ideas. The men slapped Jack's back, offering labor for the new house as wedding gifts. Later, as evening painted the sky purple, Jack drove Nora back to her boarding house. They sat in the wagon, neither ready to part. "No doubts?" he asked. "It's a hard life I'm offering." "I've had an easy life. It nearly killed me with its constraints." She leaned against his shoulder. "I want the hard life, the real life, with you." "Even when winter blizzards trap us for weeks, when drought threatens the cattle, when—" She stopped his litany with her fingers on his lips. "Even then, we'll face it together." He caught her hand, kissed her palm. Together. The week flew by in preparations. Rosa proved a whirlwind of efficiency, organizing women to clean and decorate the church, browbeating merchants into donating goods for the celebration. Her grief hadn't vanished, but purpose had returned to her movements. Nora's wedding dress emerged from the combined efforts of the town's best seamstresses, cream silk salvaged from an old ball gown, decorated with delicate embroidery. When she tried it on, Rosa's eyes filled. "Beautiful," she pronounced. "Miguel would say you look like spring morning." The night before the wedding, Nora couldn't sleep. She walked to the window of her boarding house room, looking out at the town that had become home. Tomorrow would seal her transformation from Boston exile to Wyoming rancher's wife. No partner, equal partner. A movement below caught her eye. Jack stood in the street, looking up at her window. She raised the sash. "Can't sleep either," she called softly. "Wanted to see you. Know it's bad luck and all, but—" He shrugged. "Since when do we care about conventional wisdom?" His smile flashed in the darkness. Good point. See you at the church, Miss Hale. See you there, Mr. Callan. Sunday dawned clear and bright. The whole town seemed to converge on the little church, repaired and freshly painted after Whitcomb's burning. Nora walked down the aisle on Ezra's arm, the old postmaster beaming like a proud grandfather. Jack waited at the altar in a new black suit, Pike standing as his best man. The big blacksmith wept openly through the ceremony, emotions too large for his frame. Rosa had corralled her children into uncharacteristic stillness, though Luis escaped twice before being recaptured. Dearly beloved, Father Miguel began, his voice carrying new authority from his week as mayor. We gather to witness something precious, hope renewed, love found in unlikely places. The ceremony was simple, the vows traditional with one addition. Jack and Nora had written their own promises, sealed in an envelope to be opened on their first anniversary. Something to look forward to, Nora had said. When Father Miguel pronounced them married, the church erupted in cheers. The celebration spilled into the street, tables groaning with food, fiddle music rising into the clear air. Even Marshal Reeves delayed his departure to join the festivities. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Jack and Nora slipped away. Their wagon waited, loaded with supplies for the ranch. Rosa and her children would follow tomorrow with the rest of their possessions. Ready to go home, Mrs. Callan? Jack asked, helping her onto the seat. Ready, Mr. Callan. They drove through the grasslands as sunset painted everything gold. Hidden springs sparkled in the last light, welcoming them back. The cabin looked different somehow, smaller maybe, knowing they'd soon outgrow it. But for tonight, it was perfect. Carry you over the threshold, Jack offered. Try it and we'll both end up in the dirt. Nora laughed. Save your back for building our new house. But he scooped her up anyway, both of them laughing as he negotiated the narrow door. Inside, someone Rosa probably had left flowers on the table, fresh bread on the counter, the fire laid ready to light. Home, Nora said, the word carrying new weight. Home, Jack agreed, setting her down but keeping her close. For as long as we want it. Forever sounds about right. Outside, night settled over the valley. Stars emerged in the vast Wyoming sky, countless and eternal. Hidden Spring murmured its ancient song, and in the little cabin, two people who'd found each other against all odds began building their life together, equal partners in whatever came next. Summer arrived with its burning heat, turning the grasslands golden brown. 3 months had passed since the wedding, and the new house was taking shape beside Hidden Spring. Jack worked alongside hired hands, the Kowalski boys, and 2 former miners, while Nora managed the accounts and correspondence that kept their growing operation running. Another letter from the railroad company, she called from the porch of the old cabin, which now served as their temporary office. They're increasing their beef order for next month. Jack straightened from the foundation work, wiping sweat with his sleeve. Can we meet it? If the Hendersons partner with us like they're considering, yes. She descended the steps, bringing him water. Tom Henderson wants to talk terms tomorrow. You handle it, Jack said, drinking gratefully. You've got a better head for contracts than me. It was true. Nora's education and business background, once a source of shame in her father's world, proved invaluable here. She'd negotiated deals that doubled their expected profits, always ensuring fair terms for all parties. Mrs. Callan. Rosa emerged from the garden, her apron full of vegetables. The new stove arrives today. Where do you want it placed? The domestic arrangements had evolved naturally. Rosa managed the household with quiet efficiency, her children adapting to ranch life with enthusiasm. Luis had become Jack's shadow, learning to rope and ride. The girls helped their mother and studied with Nora in the evenings. Jack, we need to talk about water rights, Nora said as they walked toward the spring. With Whitcomb's holdings being divided, there's opportunity to secure more access. Already thinking like a cattle baron, he teased. Cattle baroness, she corrected. And no thinking like someone who remembers what happened when one man controlled everything. We need community agreements, shared resources. They were discussing the details when riders appeared on the horizon. Jack tensed, hand moving to his hip where his gun no longer rested. Old habits died hard. It's Marshal Reeves, Nora said, shading her eyes. And he's not alone. The marshal rode up with a younger man in Eastern clothes, clearly uncomfortable on horseback. Reeves dismounted with his usual economy of movement. Mrs. Callan, Jack, this is Theodore Blackwood from the Territorial Attorney's Office. He has a proposition. Blackwood stumbled off his horse, brushing dust from his coat. Mrs. Callan, I've heard excellent things about your work here. The Territory is establishing new judicial circuits. We need someone to serve as clerk and administrator for this region. I thought that offer was just talk. Nora said, It was. Now it's official. Blackwood produced documents. Part-time position. As discussed. You'd handle legal filings, maintain records, assist the circuit judge when he comes through. The pay isn't much, but... I'll do it, Nora said, glancing at Jack. If my husband agrees. Your ranch work comes first, Jack said, but if you can manage both... I can... She turned to Blackwood. When do I start? Next month. The judge will swear you in when he arrives for Whitcomb's trial. After the officials left, Jack pulled Nora close. First female court clerk in the Territory, your father would be scandalized. Good, she laughed. Though his last letter suggested he's adjusting to the shock. He's even considering visiting. Boston merchant in Wyoming that I'd like to see. Their conversation was interrupted by commotion from the construction site. One of the workers had fallen from the roof beam, landing hard. Nora ran for medical supplies while Jack assessed the damage. Broken arm, maybe ribs, Jack determined. Luis, ride for Doc Morrison. Fast. The boy was off like a shot on his pony. Nora splinted the arm as best she could, drawing on first aid knowledge from her reading. The injured man, young Sam Cooper, tried to be stoic. Sorry, Mr. Callan. Stupid mistake. Accidents happen, Jack said. You'll draw full wages while you heal. Can't afford that charity. Not charity, investment. You'll work it off when you're able. Jack's tone brooked no argument. This was their way, firm but fair, building loyalty through respect rather than fear. Word had spread. Good workers sought them out, knowing they'd be treated right. Doc Morrison arrived, confirming Nora's diagnosis. Good field medicine, Mrs. Callan. You ever consider studying proper... I'm a bit busy, Doc, she said, but the seed was planted. Medical knowledge would serve the ranch well. That evening, the household gathered for dinner in the cabin. Rosa's cooking had expanded everyone's palates. Tonight's beef and bean dish carried hints of her homeland's spices. Conversation flowed in mixed English and Spanish, the children translating when needed. Mr. Jack, Luis said, when can I help with the cattle drive? When you're taller than your horse, Jack replied, rumpling the boy's hair. So maybe next week, where you're growing. After dinner, Jack and Nora walked to Hidden Spring. Their evening ritual, the water ran clear and cool, a constant in their changing world. Blackwood mentioned something else, Nora said, about Whitcomb. Jack's expression hardened. Baron Whitcomb had survived his wounds, but faced a litany of charges. His trial would be the Territory's most significant legal proceeding. He's claiming diminished capacity, Nora continued. Says the isolation and pressure of frontier life drove him to extremes. Horsish, Jack caught himself. That's nonsense. He knew exactly what he was doing. The prosecutor wants me to testify about finding the ledger, the attempts on our lives. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Her voice was firm. People died because of him. Tom Kowalski, the man who brought the ledger. Others we probably don't even know about. Someone needs to speak for them. Jack pulled her close. We'll face it together, like everything else. The next weeks passed in a blur of activity. The house walls rose, rooms taking shape according to Nora's careful plans. The partnership with the Hendersons was formalized, combining herds for better bargaining power. Nora's legal duties began with organizing years of chaotic territorial records. Then came news that set the whole valley buzzing. The railroad had chosen its route, and Dry Willow would become a major stop. Land values would soar. Business would boom, but it also meant change. Strangers, the outside world intruding on their hard-won peace. We need to prepare, Father Miguel said at a town meeting. Set ordinances now, before we're overrun. Nora should write them, Pike suggested. The blacksmith-turned-sheriff had grown into his role, his size now protecting rather than intimidating. She knows the legal language. So Nora found herself drafting the framework for a growing town zoning laws, water rights, business licenses. She worked at the kitchen table, law books spread around her, while life bustled on. Mama, look, Maria, Rosa's youngest, ran in with a handful of wildflowers. For the new house. Beautiful. Mija, put them in water. These interruptions came constantly, Jack, with a question about fence lines. Luis proudly showing off a new roping technique. Rosa needing decisions about household purchases. Nora had learned to work through the chaos, finding joy in being needed. One hot afternoon, while reviewing contracts, she felt odd, dizzy. She stood, then grabbed the table as the room spun. Nora Rosa was beside her instantly. What is wrong? Just tired, maybe. Rosa's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She asked several pointed questions, then smiled knowingly. When did you last have your monthly time? Nora's eyes widened as she calculated. Oh my. I thought so. The morning sickness. It comes soon. We must tell Jack. No, wait, I need to be sure. Doc Morrison. Pa, I have had 3 babies. I know the signs. But Rosa agreed to discretion until the doctor confirmed. The next day, Doc Morrison verified what Rosa had suspected. Nora sat in stunned joy. Hand on her still flat stomach, a baby. Their baby. She found Jack working with a young horse, patient as always with skittish creatures. He looked up at her approach, immediately alert to her expression. What is it, bad news from town? No, good news, the best news. She took his hands. We're going to have a baby. The emotions that crossed his face shock, joy, fear, wonder made her laugh and cry simultaneously. He pulled her close, then held her at arm's length, studying her as if she might break. A baby, he repeated. When? A late winter. Doc thinks February, maybe. The house will be done. We'll have proper rooms. Rosa will help. We'll need... He stopped, overwhelmed. Nora, I don't know anything about babies. Neither do I. We'll learn together. He kissed her then, sweet and thorough, while around them the ranch continued its daily rhythm. When they finally parted, both were grinning like fools. Can I tell Rosa? He asked. She'll want to start knitting immediately. She already knows. Diagnosed me before Doc Morrison. The news spread quickly through their small community. Rosa indeed began knitting. The ranch hands suddenly treated Nora like spun glass, jumping to carry anything heavier than a coffee cup. Luis solemnly informed her he would teach the baby to ride. But life didn't pause for pregnancy. Whitcomb's trial date arrived, bringing reporters and curiosity seekers to Dry Willow. Nora took her place in the witness box, speaking clearly about the events of spring. She identified the ledger, described the attacks, named the dead. Whitcomb watched from the defendant's table, much diminished. Prison had aged him, or perhaps losing his power had... When the verdict came guilty on all counts, he seemed to shrink further. Life at hard labor. The judge pronounced, "May God have mercy on your soul." Outside the courthouse, Nora breathed deep of the clean air. Justice had been served. Imperfectly, perhaps, but served nonetheless. "Oh, you did good," Jack said, taking her arm. "Tom Kowalski can rest easy now." That night, they celebrated quietly at home. The new house was nearly complete. Windows glazed, roof shingled. They walked through the empty rooms, imagining furniture, voices, life filling the spaces. "Office here," Nora said. "Nursery adjoining our bedroom. Kitchen facing east for morning sun." "Big enough for holiday dinners," Jack added. "Rosa's family, the Hands, anyone who needs a place. A real home." "We already have that," he corrected. "This is just a bigger house to put it in." August brought the first cattle drive to the railroad depot. Jack led it with the Henderson men while Nora managed the business end contracts. Payments, supplies. The profit exceeded their best hopes. "We could expand," Jack said, studying their ledgers. "Buy the Paulson place. Run more head." "Or," Nora suggested, "we could help others start small operations. Share our success rather than hoarding it." He smiled, speaking like a true rancher's wife. "Partner," she corrected automatically. "And I prefer building community to building empires. We've seen where empires lead." September arrived with its golden light and cooler air. The house stood complete, and moving day brought the whole community. Furniture appeared from unexpected sources, a rocking chair from the minister, a kitchen table built by Pike, curtains sewn by the church ladies. "It's too much," Nora protested, overwhelmed by generosity. "It's exactly enough," Father Miguel corrected. "You stood for us, we stand for you." That first night in the new house, Nora couldn't sleep. She walked the rooms, running her hands over smooth walls, looking through glass windows at the stars. Everything smelled of new wood and possibility. She found Jack on the porch, also wakeful. "Can't believe it's real," he said, making space for her beside him. "Which part? The house, the ranch, the baby?" "All of it. Year ago I was just marking time, hiding from the world. Now," he gestured at their domain, "now I have more than I ever dreamed." "We have it," she corrected. "Equal partners. Remember, how could I forget you remind me daily?" But his tone was fond. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds, cattle lowing, coyotes singing, hidden spring murmuring its endless story. Inside Nora, new life grew. Around them, their chosen community thrived. Ahead lay challenges she couldn't foresee, but she faced them without fear. "No regrets?" Jack asked. "About Boston, about the life you might have had?" "That life was killing me slowly," she said. "This one makes me alive. No regrets, not one." He pulled her close as the autumn wind whispered promises through the grass. Tomorrow would bring its own work and worries. But tonight, they were home. February came with a vengeance, bringing the worst blizzard in memory. Snow piled against the windows of the new house, and the wind howled like a living thing. Nora gripped the bedpost as another contraction rolled through her body. "That's it. Breathe through it," Doc Morrison coached. He'd been trapped at the ranch for 2 days when the storm hit. A fortunate coincidence. Jack paced the hallway outside, his footsteps a nervous rhythm. Rosa emerged with fresh linens, patting his arm. "All is well. First babies. They take their time." "It's been hours," Jack said, running his hand through his hair. "Is that normal?" "Si, very normal. My Luis took 18 hours. You go check the cattle. Keep busy." But Jack couldn't leave. He resumed pacing, each of Nora's cries twisting something deep in his chest. This was a battle he couldn't fight for her, a pain he couldn't share. Inside the bedroom, Nora focused on Doc Morrison's calm voice. The contractions were coming faster now. Stronger. She thought of her mother, dead these 10 years, wished for her presence. "You're doing fine," the doctor assured her. "Baby's positioned well. Won't be long now." Time lost meaning in the rhythm of pain and rest. Outside, the blizzard raged. Inside, a more ancient storm built toward its climax. Then, between one breath and the next, everything changed. "I can see the head," Doc Morrison announced. "Next contraction. You push hard." Nora bore down with strength she didn't know she possessed. Once, twice, and then a cry, thin but fierce, cut through the wind's howling. "It's a girl," Doc Morrison announced, quickly cleaning the infant. "Healthy and loud." Nora reached for her daughter with trembling arms. The baby was red-faced and indignant, dark hair plastered to her tiny head. But to Nora, she was perfect. "Jack!" she called. "Jack!" He burst through the door, took 2 steps, then stopped as if struck. His eyes moved from Nora to the bundle in her arms, wonder replacing worry on his face. "Come meet your daughter," Nora said softly. Jack approached like a man in a dream, sinking onto the bed's edge, with infinite care. He touched the baby's cheek. She turned toward his finger, mouth working. "She's so small," he whispered. "So perfect. Does she have a name?" They'd discussed names for months, but seeing their daughter made the choice clear. "Sarah," Nora said. "After your mother, Sarah Hope Callan." Jack's eyes glistened. His mother had died birthing him, a shadow that had haunted his early years. She would have been honored. Rosa bustled in with warm water and fresh clothes. "Ah, Kaylinda, beautiful baby." Strong lungs, you hear her telling the storm to quiet down. Indeed, little Sarah seemed to be competing with the blizzard, her cries remarkably robust. Doc Morrison finished his ministrations, declaring both mother and baby in fine health. "You'll need rest," he instructed Nora. "Let Rosa and Jack handle everything else." As if in response to the baby's arrival, the storm began to ease. By evening, only light snow fell, and stars peeked through breaking clouds. The ranch hands gathered in the main room, hats in hand, waiting for news. Jack emerged carrying his daughter, wrapped in one of Rosa's knitted blankets. The tough cowboys went soft at the sight, offering awkward congratulations. "To Sarah Hope," Luis announced solemnly, raising a cup of Rosa's hot chocolate. "May she ride like the wind and rope like her papa." "And think like her mama," Sam Cooper added, his arm still weak from his fall but healed enough to work. "Else we're all in trouble." The days that followed blurred together in a haze of feedings, diapers, and exhausted wonder. Nora had read about infant care, but reality proved messier and more magnificent than any book. Sarah had her father's blue eyes and her mother's determined chin, a combination that promised interesting times ahead. "She's got opinions," Jack said one night, walking the floor with his crying daughter. "Definite opinions about everything." "Wonder where she gets that," Nora murmured from the bed, too tired to properly tease. The ranch adapted to its newest member. Meetings moved around Sarah's schedule. The hands learned to whisper when passing the nursery. Rosa became a second grandmother, sharing wisdom from raising her own children. Spring arrived slowly, melting the record snowfall into rushing streams. The first calves began dropping, keeping everyone busy. Nora strapped Sarah to her chest and returned to work, managing accounts from the porch while keeping an eye on the baby. "Letter from your father," Jack said one April morning, handing her the envelope. Nora recognized the Boston postmark with mixed feelings. Her correspondence with her father had grown warmer but remained formal. She opened it to find unexpected news. "He's coming to visit," she said, stunned. "Next month, he wants to meet his granddaughter." "About time. Man should know his family." "Jack, he's very proper. Boston society. What if he disapproves?" "Then he's a fool."
Jack bounced Sarah, who gurgled happily. "Look at this, girl. Look at what we've built. If he can't see the value, that's his loss." But Nora worried. Her father represented everything she'd left behind: rigid propriety, social climbing, appearance over substance. How would he react to her rough-handed husband, their multicultural household, her work that no Boston lady would consider? May brought wildflowers and her father, watching him step down from the stage. Nora saw him with new eyes. He looked older, grayer, somehow diminished in his city clothes against the vast sky. "Nora." He embraced her stiffly, then noticed the baby in her arms. His formal manner cracked. "Is this—" "Your granddaughter, Sarah Hope." Something shifted in Charles Hale's weathered face. He reached out tentatively, and Sarah grabbed his finger with infant determination. His composure crumbled entirely. "She's beautiful," he said, voice thick. "May I?" Nora transferred Sarah to her grandfather's arms. The baby studied him solemnly, then smiled her first true smile. Charles Hale, Boston merchant and social arbiter, was conquered utterly. The visit transformed both parties. Charles threw himself into ranch life with unexpected enthusiasm, following Jack on rounds, learning to milk cows, even attempting to ride. His Eastern formality gave way to genuine interest. "You've built something remarkable," he told them over dinner. "This community, this life, it's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Nora asked carefully. "Honestly, squalor, struggle, my daughter making do with less than she deserved." He looked around the comfortable room, at Rosa serving hearty food, at Luis practicing rope tricks in the corner. "Instead, I find abundance, not of money, though you're doing well enough. Abundance of purpose." "We work for more than profit," Jack said. "Build more than just herds." Charles nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand. In Boston, we build fortunes but lose something, connection, perhaps meaning." He stayed 2 weeks, each day peeling away another layer of Eastern prejudice. He helped with the spring branding, swearing colorfully when a calf kicked him. He attended Sunday service in the small church, sitting beside former slaves and immigrant farmers. He held court in the saloon, telling stories of shipping routes while miners bought him drinks. "Your husband," he told Nora privately, "is not what I expected either." "Oh." "I thought you'd married beneath you, some rough cowboy who trapped you with charm." He smiled ruefully. "Instead, I find a man of principle, intelligent, hard-working, respected. You chose well." "I chose love," Nora corrected. "The rest followed." The night before his departure, Charles made an announcement. "I'm restructuring the shipping business, creating a Western office, handling rail freight to the ports." He looked at Nora. "I'll need a regional manager, someone who understands both worlds." "Father, I can't leave." "Not asking you to. Run it from here. Telegraph's coming through next year. You could coordinate shipments, negotiate contracts, build connections between the cattle operations and Eastern markets." Nora exchanged glances with Jack, who nodded slightly. "Equal partnership with the ranch work." "Of course. I'm not trying to steal you back, daughter. I'm trying to be part of what you've built." They saw him off the next morning, Sarah waving her tiny fist at the departing stage. Something had healed between them. Not perfectly, but enough. Summer brought its own challenges and joys. The railroad's arrival transformed Dry Willow almost overnight. New businesses sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Strangers flooded in, some seeking honest work, others looking for easy marks. "We need more deputies," Pike said at a town meeting. "Can't handle this alone." "And a school," Father Miguel added. 30 new families just this month, many with children." "Nora could teach," someone suggested. "Until we find a proper school, Marm." "I have enough work," Nora protested.
then caught sight of Luis's eager face. The boy was bright, hungry for learning beyond what she could offer in evening lessons. But I could organize it, find a teacher, set up the curriculum. So another role was added to her collection education committee chair. Jack teased her about empire building, but she saw it as community investment. The stronger Dry Willow grew, the safer their future. August marked Sarah's 6-month milestone. She sat up, babbled constantly, and charmed everyone in her orbit. The ranch hands competed to make her laugh. Rosa taught her Spanish lullabies. Even the stern new schoolteacher melted at her gummy grin. She'll be spoiled rotten, Nora worried. She'll be loved, Jack corrected. There's a difference. The fall cattle drive proved their most successful yet. The partnership with other small ranchers had created a powerful negotiating bloc. When buyers tried to lowball, they stood firm together, securing fair prices for all. Whitcomb would spin in his cell seeing this. Tom Henderson said, counting his profits. Cooperation beating competition. Different way of thinking. Jack agreed. Rising tide lifts all boats. November brought unexpected drama. A fire started in the new hotel, spreading quickly through the dry wood. The town rallied bucket brigades, wet blankets, everyone fighting the common enemy. Jack led men onto roofs, cutting fire breaks. Nora organized the women in evacuating families and treating burns. When dawn broke over the charred but standing buildings, Dry Willow had proven itself, not just a collection of individuals, but a true community. We need a proper fire department, Mayor Miguel announced. Volunteers, equipment, training. I'll head it up. Sam Cooper volunteered. His broken arm had healed strong, and he'd proven himself invaluable. If Mr. Callan can spare me part-time. Community comes first, Jack said simply. December arrived with gentle snow and busy preparation. The new house would host its first Christmas gathering, an open invitation to anyone without family plans. Rosa commanded the kitchen like a general, producing miraculous quantities of food. Nora decorated with pine boughs and ribbon. Sarah on her hip, helping. Next year she'll be walking, Jack said, watching their daughter grab for shiny ornaments. Getting into everything. Lord help us, Nora laughed. She's active enough crawling. Christmas Eve brought a crowd. The Kowalski family, the Hendersons, Pike and his new wife, Doc Morrison, Father Miguel, the school teacher. Various hands and townspeople all gathered in the warm house. Languages mixed, stories flowed. Children raced between adults' legs. Look at this, Jack said quietly to Nora as they watched from the kitchen doorway. 1.5 years ago, I was alone in a cold cabin. Now you're stuck with all of us, Nora finished. Best trap I ever walked into. Sarah passed from arm to arm like a tiny celebrity, finally fussed for her parents. Nora took her to the nursery for feeding while the party continued. Through the window, snow fell soft and steady, blanketing the world in peace. When she returned, Jack had gathered everyone's attention. Want to say something? He began, uncomfortable with speeches. This year's brought more blessings than I can count. Good neighbors, fair weather, healthy stock, but mostly, it's brought understanding. He looked around the room. We come from different places, different languages, different ways. Should divide us, but instead, he gestured at the gathered crowd. Instead, we're family. Not by blood, but by choice, by shared work and mutual respect. To chosen family. Father Miguel raised his glass. To chosen family, the room echoed. Later, after guests departed and the house quieted, Jack and Nora sat by the fire with Sarah drowsing between them. The baby clutched a wooden rattle Luis had carved, her face peaceful in sleep. Good first Christmas, Jack said. Best Christmas, Nora corrected. Though I suspect each one will be better. Sarah's first word will probably be more, Jack teased. She's got your ambition. And your stubbornness. Poor kid's doomed. They laughed quietly, not wanting to wake the baby. Outside, the snow continued, wrapping their home in pristine white. Hidden Spring ran unfrozen, its voice a constant promise of life even in winter's depth. Year ago, we were fighting for survival. Nora reflected. Now we're building a future. Together, Jack said, pulling her close. Whatever comes, we face it together. Sarah stirred, made a small sound of contentment, and settled deeper into sleep. Around them, the house held warmth against the cold, light against the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, always did on a working ranch. The railroad's influence would grow. The town would change. Their daughter would grow and test every boundary. But tonight, in this moment, everything was perfect. A family forged by choice and strengthened by trials. A community built on justice rather than fear. A future bright with possibility. The fire crackled, sending sparks up the chimney like wishes rising to the stars. And in the circle of warmth and love, 3 hearts beat as one, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I hope you enjoyed following Nora and Jack's journey from strangers to partners, building not just a ranch but a community based on justice and mutual respect. If you're listening to this story, I'd love to know where you are in the world right now. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts about their adventure. Don't forget to subscribe to Wild West Night for more tales from the American frontier. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that hype button to help more people discover this story. Until next time, partners.